But I really do want to talk about what's happening in this country, specifically with the events of the past few days, the killing of Charlie Kirk, the capture of Tyler Robinson, the idea of his radicalization, what it means coming from a Mormon household like I did. I might have some insight based on data, but also on family history and anecdotally on what it feels like to be sort of indoctrinated into spiritual warfare, but also belief systems that are unprovable. But then also, what does censorship look like from major networks, and what happens when you're a part of that, and how do you react to it? Out of everything I've done since the craziness of Congress, since being accused on disinformation, as you guys know, from Bigfoot erotica from the left to being a tool of the Antichrist on the right, my question to all of you today, right, is that what else could scare Denver, right? I've had one attempt on my life, thousands of death threats, been on 60 Minutes, J6 committee, been attacked by multiple people as far as verbally and, just across the spectrum, depending on how I present facts or data or how I'm viewed based on other people's opinions or disinformation. So today, after everything that I've been through for the past 6 to 7 years, being in war zones, so let's go back to 1992 when I enlisted. Let's go back to my first major deployment in 94. And then in 1999, Operation Allied Force in Eastern Europe, 2000 in the Middle East, 2001, I deployed for 9/11, 2002, Special Projects in NSA, right, all the things I've done. Today is the most afraid I've been for this country, especially when major networks self-censorship. I'm not going to say the network, though people might be able to guess. But today I was asked to do a piece on radicalization of Tyler Robinson. And it was nixed because the network was afraid of retaliation if anybody came on and talked about Charlie Kirk in any way, in an analysis way. It was completely stopped. If I told you the full conversation, I think everyone here would get very, very angry. But the issue that I have is, what do I do when I am told I cannot even discuss something on air, when that was my original discussion? They try to change my topics to Senate rules. I have 1 hour back and forth with producers to the point that they give me another topic where it's actually a smaller set with somebody else. And if I actually lean too far forward and talk about what I think this country wants to hear, it could actually jeopardize the people who asked me to come on the show. That is what happened today. Obviously, I want to talk about how easy it is to radicalize those who already have supernatural beliefs, evangelicals, people like that. Not all of them, but it's definitely an indicator that you're easily led incredulous if you believe that a supernatural being talks to you in your head. I think also if you have belief systems that can't be factually proven, or like me being raised Mormon, that there were golden plates that were translated using the Urim and Thummim, and both that and the plates were magically taken up before you could prove it. And then people signed that they saw it, and those were the very people who actually stood to benefit from the church and the tithing of 10% on gross per every person. It feels like a follow the money issue if you start going down the line. And not to say there's not beautiful LDS people, but the tenets of the Mormon religion are very difficult to get your arms around. That it's the one true religion, but somehow God is immutable. But he sure changed a lot of rules for the Mormons, even up to 1978, where African Americans could finally attain the highest priesthood, which they couldn't up until that time, because black skin in the Mormon religion was considered a curse. True story, statement of fact. When you're looking at Tyler, he already had a propensity and a credulity based on his belief system. So the ability to weaponize and radicalize somebody like that who's online on Discord, really, which is another program that can be easily utilized for radicalization, it's something I think that needs to be discussed down the line. I think it needs to be discussed about Charlie Kirk and go back 15 years, right, and look at how he was groomed, right, coming up through as an 18-year-old told not to go to college, right, and brought in by an elderly gentleman to run TPUSA to reach out to young people. A guy named Bill Montgomery, who eventually died of COVID, which I went into on my last Denver After Dark. And I know I sound very muted tonight, but the fear was, with me not going all in and leaning forward, was I a coward to do that, or did I live to fight another day? And now that I have this independent methodology or menu or this ability to talk directly to you, what is the dividing line between trying to balance what you should say immediately based on news and how often you can stay out here? Because you have to admit, even though people make fun of mainstream media and it's completely untrustworthy in some respects, in other respects, you can reach mass audiences by leveraging it to your benefit. And that's exactly what Trump does through Fox and things like that. So the question I have for all of you tonight, first of all, how do I react to it? My reaction is anger. It's actually rage mixed with a terror I've never had about this country, because my wonder is, and I had a great discussion with Cletus on this, is my discussion is forward thinking. What happens in a year? What happens in a year? Are major outlets going to be bragging to the president about their censorship policies? How about Barry Weiss over at CBS? How about these monitors of speech? What has happened to our country? And what has happened where we have a judicial branch that has allowed sort of this, I would say, this overwrought sort of resurfacing of the United States of America. And I find it amazing that we literally right now are looking at dictatorial decrees, and that we have major networks following those decrees out of fear that their FCC license is going to be pulled, which Donald Trump threatened today, or that somehow they're going to get attacked or sued. The very people that claim lawfare are the very people executing lawfare against the American people and the institutions that were supposed to keep us free. All the safeguards are gone. And my guess is, by some of the things that Trump is saying, that we're looking at a 2026 midterm that we should be very worried about, but he could be running for a third term in 2028. And a lot of people are like, Denver, this is nuts. Everybody said I was nuts about QAnon. Everybody said I was nuts. Uh, People didn't even believe when I said Tyler Robson's going to be a solitary white male who was radicalized based on a change in ideals. And that's what happened. It's going to be a lone wolf attack. And people want to argue that term with me, but that's what it was. And you can say whatever, right? Was he a Groyper? Was he Antifa? Really doesn't matter, because what we're having is political violence. Charlie Kirk was not a saint. Charlie Kirk wasn't a good guy. And if people don't like it, if they don't like the fact that I don't like Charlie Kirk, I don't give a shit. And you guys know I don't. But I can talk about political violence and radicalization without going personal about Charlie Kirk or his family. And then I said I could do that also. But again, that was rejected. If everybody is going to comply, if there's nobody going to stand up, what happens to those who want to stand up that don't have the means to? What happens to people like us? Yes, I can do other things. Yes, I'm okay financially. Yes, I have some facing persona. Yes, I have a little bit of protection by hiding in the wide open. I'm not going to lie. And for me, even though I could be subpoenaed by the J6 committee or arrested based on this new subcommittee investigation, I still have a modicum of protection. But I'm also, when I'm out there, I'm also a threat. And when my own family, who has never, ever, ever said, Den, throttle back, when my own family comes to me and says, maybe you should throttle back after what happened to Charlie Kirk, what does that say about what's happening out there in the environment today? I don't want to go on forever. But what I'm saying is, I think I'm allowed to tell you guys, I'm allowed to tell you as a human being, that it gets to a point that you wonder if you're beating your fists against the wall to no avail, that nobody can hear you on the other side. And yet, despite that, I'm not going to stop. And I'm worried. I'm worried about me, worried about my family, worried about my friends. I'm worried about the people who work for me. I'm worried about my facilities. I'm worried about all of that. There are a lot of people that work for me. And with me speaking out, does that put them at jeopardy? Does that put my family at jeopardy? Guys, you know, people there who have family, you know that you value your family more than yourself. Can you imagine if something happened to one of my family members because of my last name? Unbelievable. And if you don't have a fourth estate, or you don't have an army behind you of the sane or the rational, and you don't have that type of support structure, you literally can be alone in certain aspects of going out, trying to practice free speech, trying to be an American, and trying to paint facts and truth about what's happening out there today. The act of political killings is disastrous for our country. Disastrous. There is no off-ramp from reality. There is no off-ramp. And if there is an off-ramp from reality, it will lead to chaos or North Korea. That's where we're at. And now I have to balance this knife's edge through the midterms to make sure that I can still be out there in some way, that I can still participate in public discourse. But if the major networks are going to censor or be afraid to talk about things because of Donald Trump, we don't live in the United States at all. We're already over. And that to me is why I'm bothered today. Censorship, fear, cowardice, brutality, the things that happened this week, lies, disinformation, propaganda, magical thinking, fantastical thoughts, people in positions of power who believe in interdimensional beings or angels or demons or alien abductions or Bigfoot. That's where we're at. And when you combine magical thinking with censorship, all of a sudden you find out we're on the off-ramp from reality. Thank you guys for tonight. Love to hear your comments afterwards. If you want to, hell, I'm not going to give everybody my cell phone number. But love to see you guys reach out. I'll continue to do this. Sunday Night Live is going to be a doozy, but this one is a bothersome. Sorry to get a little personal, but that's what a lot of people face. Sometimes you do have to make a decision on safety and leaning forward. And I think I'm going to lean forward. But again, there's a fine line between leaning forward and bending over also. So we have to worry about that. But again, thank you guys. I didn't mean to make that a long ending, but you have a great night, and I'll see you guys later.